The laughter began before Nathan even reached the front row. It wasn't loud enough to stop the event, but it was sharp enough to cut through his confidence like broken glass. Parents sitting together exchanged amused glances as he carefully balanced a homemade cake in one hand while helping his 7-year-old son, Samuel, straighten the wrinkled collar of his tiny blue shirt. Every child at the prestigious elementary school in Boston seemed to have both parents beside them, dressed in expensive clothes, smiling for photographs. Nathan stood alone again, wearing the same navy suit he had owned for nearly 8 years. If you had walked into that room, would you have kept your head high after hearing strangers quietly judge you before they even knew your story? Would you have smiled for your child while your own heart quietly shattered? Nathan did exactly that because he had learned that sometimes love demanded silent strength more than loud pride. 3 years earlier, Nathan's world had collapsed when his wife, Rebecca, passed away unexpectedly after a sudden illness. Overnight he became both mother and father to little Samuel. Every morning began before sunrise as he prepared breakfast, packed lunches, braided the parts of childhood that he had never imagined handling alone, and then rushed to his construction job. Every evening he returned home exhausted but somehow still found enough energy to help with homework, cook dinner, wash clothes, and read bedtime stories. Sleep became a luxury he rarely enjoyed, yet every sacrifice felt worthwhile whenever Samuel smiled. The little boy never complained about wearing second-hand clothes or missing expensive vacations because he understood, even at his young age, that his father was giving him everything he possibly could. The annual family achievement celebration was supposed to honor children and the parents who supported them. Instead, it quietly became another reminder of how society often measured people by appearances instead of character. Nathan noticed polished luxury cars filling the parking lot while he parked his aging pickup truck near the back. Parents proudly introduced business partners, doctors, lawyers, and executives. Nathan simply carried the cake Samuel had helped decorate the night before using inexpensive frosting and colorful candy bought on clearance. To him, it was priceless because tiny fingerprints covered every corner of it. As awards were announced, Samuel's name echoed through the auditorium after being recognized for kindness, academic excellence, and helping new students feel welcome. Nathan's eyes filled with tears that he tried desperately to hide. While the audience applauded, a few whispers drifted through nearby seats about how the poor single father probably struggled to keep up with everyone else. Some wondered where Samuel's mother was. Others quietly assumed Nathan had somehow failed his family. They saw only an ordinary man standing alone. They never saw the sleepless nights, the unpaid bills, the birthday parties he planned by himself, or the tears he cried only after Samuel had fallen asleep. Near the back of the auditorium sat Victoria Harper, one of America's youngest female billionaires. She had quietly donated millions to children's education through anonymous foundations, preferring to avoid media attention whenever possible. She had been invited to present a scholarship award but had arrived early enough to observe the families instead. What caught her attention wasn't the expensive clothing or polished speeches. It was Nathan kneeling beside Samuel, gently fixing his son's loose shoelace while pretending not to notice the mocking smiles around him. There was a quiet dignity in that simple act that money could never purchase. When Samuel accepted his certificate, he looked toward his father instead of the audience. The pride in his eyes reflected years of unconditional love. As he returned to his seat, he hugged Nathan tightly without embarrassment. That single embrace seemed to silence everything around them for just a moment. Victoria watched carefully. She recognized something painfully familiar because decades earlier her own father had raised her alone after losing her mother. He had worked endless hours as a mechanic, enduring similar judgment from people who believed financial success determined someone's worth. Those memories had never left her, even after building one of the largest technology companies in the country. The ceremony ended, and families gathered for photographs. Nathan stepped aside, assuming no one wanted him standing near the distinguished guests. He quietly encouraged Samuel to celebrate with his classmates while he packed the leftover cake into a small container. Then something happened that nobody expected. Victoria walked directly across the crowded room toward Nathan. Conversation slowly faded as hundreds of curious eyes followed her every step. Without hesitation, she thanked Nathan for reminding everyone what real success actually looked like. She explained that she had spent the entire morning watching him place his son's happiness above his own embarrassment. She told the audience that true wealth was measured by sacrifice, character, and unconditional love, not luxury cars or designer clothes. The room became completely silent. Parents who had whispered moments earlier suddenly lowered their eyes. Victoria then announced that her education foundation had selected one family for a special recognition that had not been listed in the program. Instead of honoring financial achievement or public influence, it would honor extraordinary parenting through quiet perseverance. She handed Nathan a framed certificate recognizing him as an outstanding parent of courage and presented Samuel with a fully funded educational scholarship covering every year through college. Tears streamed freely down Nathan's face as he struggled to believe what was happening. Samuel wrapped both arms around his father, smiling wider than Nathan had seen since Rebecca's final days. The applause that followed sounded completely different from the polite clapping earlier in the ceremony. This time people stood together, not because of wealth or status, but because they had witnessed humility, resilience, and love receive the recognition they deserved. Several parents who had judged Nathan approached him afterward with sincere apologies. They admitted they had assumed his story before ever taking the time to understand it. Nathan accepted every apology with quiet grace because bitterness had never been the lesson he wanted Samuel to learn. Weeks later, Victoria continued supporting the school without seeking publicity, but one photograph unexpectedly spread across social media. It wasn't the picture of a billionaire giving away another scholarship. It was the image of a tired father hugging his son while holding an ordinary homemade cake. Millions of people shared it with captions celebrating single parents who quietly carried impossible burdens every single day. Messages poured in from mothers, fathers, grandparents, teachers, and children thanking Nathan for reminding them that love often wears worn-out shoes, patched jackets, and exhausted smiles. Years passed, and Samuel eventually graduated at the top of his class before earning a university degree made possible by the scholarship. During his graduation speech, he never mentioned awards, money, or recognition. Instead, he spoke about one man who had taught him that strength meant showing up even when people laughed, kindness meant forgiving those who judged you, and success meant never allowing hardship to harden your heart. Nathan sat in the audience with tears quietly falling once again, realizing that every lonely morning, every missed meal, every aching muscle, and every silent prayer had been worth it. Before you go, tell us in the comments, have you ever seen someone judged unfairly before anyone knew their story? Sometimes the strongest people are the ones standing alone, carrying invisible burdens while refusing to let those they love feel the weight. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe for more stories that remind us kindness can change a life.